right, here it is. I think we're up and running. We appear to be. Although you just never know. You just never know. But it appears we're live right now for episode 14. Episode 14 of Regalwood Rasslin. Welcome to those of you who are out there with us. To those of you who may join us in the future. This is episode 14. I am your humble host, the most humble man on the planet. The overlord of the wasteland, the engineer of combat, the big boss with the hot sauce and the star of this by God show, Richard James Regal. Welcome. It is July 3rd, 2026 in the year of our Lord. Of course, tomorrow the big Independence Day celebrations, and we're going to kick some fireworks off early this week with a big interview that will get some attention, I am sure. Chase Emery joins me today for the interview portion, and when I tell you this one will probably turn some heads, can pretty much going to guarantee that to happen. So what's going on? Oh, before I do any of that nonsense, we're live right now on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Rumble, and Kick. YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Rumble, and Kick. Of course, the YouTube channel, the hub of all things Regal. If there's anything that you need to know about us, past, present, or future, it's all right there on that good old YouTube channel. That's Wrestle Radio 860. Wrestle Radio 860 on YouTube. Lots of old programs back when we had a real honest-to-God over-the-air radio program. A lot of interviews with legends on that channel. So if you've missed any of the previous stuff, it all sits right there on that good old YouTube channel. Twitch, of course, Regalwood 6969. Facebook, RIKKIREGAL. And Rumble and Kick, of course, are Regalwood. Remember this guy, if you see him, giant bulldog right here, then you know you're in the right spot. All right, so a lot of stuff going on in the world of wrestling. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on news today because I want to get right to this interview. I will tell you, this interview is an hour long. It is 1 hour of me and Chase Emery having a nice conversation. I'll tell you, he's remarkably candid. He goes into a lot of detail about a lot of things, even addresses some current or some recent comments that were made right here on this same program, and he will be talking about that in the interview. But it is an hour long, so if you want to take it in chunks, you can wait for the replay, which will air immediately after we go off live here in the next little bit. Don't do a little bit of news. Of course, the biggest nonsense, and we love to do the most ridiculous item of the week here at the at the big show, and that viral posts that went out with those two ladies that were mad about indie wrestlers being mean to their children. Chase Emery was actually kind of adjacent to that. He was actually in the match with one of the guys that got called out for being mean to a child, and we actually talk about it a little bit in the interview. So stay tuned for that. He does talk about it, and it kind of brings around the point that maybe as much as we see here and bemoan the fact that kayfabe is kind of a thing of the past, it apparently exists as long as if you scream at a child, then all of a sudden kayfabe becomes a real thing again, and everybody's a believer, and everybody thinks you're just as mean as you portend to be. But that was I thought that was look, man, I got kids. Most of my audience has kids. It would have never have occurred to me to go to a wrestling show and have a bad guy scream at a child or yell at a child or tell a child to get out of my way, you stupid kid, and me take offense to that. Now, this world ain't for everybody. Although, what's the motto? Wrestling's for everyone. Wrestling, we gotta involve, we gotta include, right? Wrestling's for everybody, but apparently it's not for the helicopter parent. Apparently, wrestling's not for that segment of our population. What else? Sami Zayn was crowned new WWE Undisputed. A lot of people mad about that. I don't care. doesn't affect my life one way or another. God bless El Generico there for stepping up and falling into the championship. Last week, Bully Ray apparently made somebody mad, and he was talking about beating the living crap out of John Moxley. I don't know why he's mad at John Moxley, but apparently he thinks that he can beat him up. And for some reason, Josh Barnett, UFC fighter, didn't like that, took offense to it, went ahead and called Bully out on it. I can't see this leading up to anything or becoming anything. But look, Billy Ray, one of the best heels of all time. I've always said Bully Ray, one of the better heels that ever did the thing. So it goes back to the not yelling at kids thing. If you're doing a successful job of being a heel, then you've done your job. And I don't know why a UFC guy would care what Bully Ray had to say, but this is the world we find ourselves in. One more quick thing that I want to get to. Nicola Roberts, of course, Baby Doll, who we had here on the show some weeks back, has put out a post here just a couple hours ago asking for prayers for her husband, Chad Bird. I don't know what's going on with Baby Doll. That's all that the post said. But whatever's going on with Baby Doll and her husband, we are sending out our thoughts. And if there's anything we can do, Baby Doll, of course, a friend of the show, we would love to know what's going on. If there's anything we can do to get some words out. All right, in that frame of mind, and we don't want to be Debbie Downer here, but we are going to bring in Lace. She's been sitting with Voodoo Daddy, of course, James Jones, good friend of ours. He's always been a part of the show. James, of course, having some major health problems, and he's currently in the hospital right now. Lace has been sitting with him. We're going to bring her in and let her kind of tell us a little bit about what's going on. And with that, let me see. Well, okay. I said that, and of course I haven't done what I'm supposed to do. So give me a quick second here to get her in, and we'll find out what's going on with Voodoo there in the hospital. Hang on just a second. Y'all know I can't do more than one thing at a time. So let's get this. Let's do that. We'll do this. Give me a second. I know. I don't want to hear it. It is what it is. And let's see here. All right. That didn't work. Try it again. Bear with me. I don't care. Put that there. There. Do this. Do that. Stand by. We're getting there. It's a work in progress. It's always work in progress. See you. Well, this is another first. I have there we go. I see you now. Okay. All right. It's always a problem. If there's not a problem, it's not a show. And we have that, of course, that's our motto here. One of our many mottos at this train wreck of an event that we put on every week. Let's see if I can get her in here now. All right. Let me get my do that. All right. Now, welcome to the program. Lace, what you got for us this week, Lace? I know you're at the hospital and you've been there for some time. Tell us what's going on with you and what's happening with Voodoo.
Well, I am at the hospital, but as everyone knows, he has cancer and it's eat up his liver. But we are in hospice situation, non-responsive, and to be honest, he's not here anymore. Is the best way I can say it. There's a body, there's a breathing organ, and his heart is still beating slightly, but to me, God's already wrapped his arms around him and taken him. It's a matter of the organs shutting down a little bit at a time. So I'm coming in every day to relieve his wife for a little bit and staying, 4 or 5 hours, just putting lotion on them and stuff. And it's time for him to go. He just hasn't.
Yes, Bill Hazelwood saying his Voodoo Daddy, the finisher, was the breath. Yep, Bill, that's the right guy. You're thinking of the right person. Worked for Brody there, was trained by Brody.
Breath of Dad.
Yep, was trained by Brody, and just a really good guy, man. He had popped in here several times. And I think, one thing I do take a little bit of soft sin is I know we brought him some joy there toward the end that he was actually able to come in, and I'm glad he got to see the Brody thing, and Brody gave him a nice shout out, so that was very cool. It's sad, man. I hate it for Voodoo. He was always such a nice guy, and you said something about the fact that he was in such good condition that were it not for that, he probably would have already gone, but because he kept himself in such good shape and such good condition, that's actually help beat it back a little bit, even though he's in the advanced part that he's in now.
Yes, I talked with hospice, because Wesley, had cancer, and I've sat with several other wrestlers, but Voodoo was admittingly 63, but he had a good heart, still kept his muscle strength up, worked, 50 hours a week. Because of that, the upper part of his body is so strong, it's fighting against the organs that are dying and being, barely working. It's almost like a unbelievable thing that no oxygen, no food for 2 weeks, and his heart's still beating pretty good. It's starting to shallow a little bit, but his, like you said, the way he had his health before has really kept his body going some.
Yeah, it's just it's just a testament to to his condition and the fact that he kept himself in shape. I didn't know he was that old. I didn't really know how old he was, but yeah, it's a shame, and I hate it for his family. I know he's got kids. How are they dealing with everything?
Actually, doing pretty good. We had prepared for it and things, and kind of like you would expect, they've said their goodbyes, and coming to see him is not really seeing him. So I talked with them. We've all talked with them, and they don't have to come up here and see just the waiting game.
Yeah.
And so I think it is better for them that they remember him as their stubborn, hardwired or whatever it is, dad.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of is he just wanted to step in the ring one more time, not to wrestle, just walk across the ring, and he didn't get to do that.
Yeah.
But him watching the show, like you said, really gave him that strength to let go.
Yeah.
And let it take its course.
Yeah. I really do hate it, and then again, just I never heard a bad thing about the man. He was always, had a smile on his face and always did his best to absolutely entertain, and so blessings to him and his family. And I know he's going to the right place. A lot of people in the chat sending out their thoughts. Tyler Alexander says prayers. Missy Childers, she's praying hard. It's hard. She says it's hard. Kim, of course, says sending prayers out in comfort, and Dion says prayers for the Voodoo Man. So yeah, a lot of people sending out the good vibes to him and his family, and of course, you doing God's work, sitting out there, sitting with them, and being there for the family. I'm sure that means a lot to them. So God bless you as well for doing what you're doing. I'm sure it means a lot to them and certainly to this community. Before I let you go, anything else coming up that you might want to get?
That's our wrestling fan.
Yeah, without a doubt. Before I get you out of here, anything else you want to tell the people before we get you on your way?
The one that comes to mind is Hoss Haygoods and Wrestle Forces headlocks for home runs. That seems to be something I'm extremely looking forward to because I'm going to get to see a lot of our friends from mine and your days. And that's just one that I definitely want to put out there. I really want as many people to come to this as possible, along with any shows. I'm not able to update the shows right now and keep up to date, but August the 2nd at the Abbeville Civic Center, to me, that is an extremely important charity event, and people are going to get to see some of us that they don't get to see anymore.
Yeah, it's a stat card for sure, and kudos to Hoss for he's really worked hard to put that thing out. And from having done charity events, of course, everybody in this audience is aware of what we did in Lawrence, but I will tell you that is a beast of an undertaking. And so I know he's been out there doing the thing. He was actually appeared on some local radio earlier this week, and actually Chase and I will talk about that event in today's upcoming interview as well. So yeah, it's a good thing. I'm going to try. No promises here, but I'm going to try to make it out there. This is literally right in my backyard, so I'm going to try to make it to that event, and that'll be my one good deed for the year, for this year at least. Lots of folks still sending out thoughts. Scotty Wentz tells a quick story in the chat that his first match was with Voodoo, and that he pinched him under his arm so hard to get him to sell a headlock. He was bruised for a week. So good times, and of course everybody thinking about the Voodoo man and his family at this time. Lace, thank you so much again. I appreciate you popping in and updating the people on our friend James Jones there, and I will see you next week. I appreciate you again for popping in. That is our friend, the lovely and talented Lace, popping in to give us a nice quick update on our friend Voodoo Daddy. All right, tell you what, I don't want to belabor this because again the interview is super long, and I want to get to it because it's important. And I think it's going to. I think it's one that you're going to want to hear. It's very, very. Look, Jake's a good guy. He and I had a nice chat, and I really enjoyed talking to him. I'd never met or talked to him before, and I'll tell you, man, he's very forthcoming. He's very honest, and he addresses. I mean, most of you that in this audience saw when Thomas was on, and Thomas brought him up. And so he has some words to say about that, and some quite candid words. So, tell you what, take a super quick break. Going to reset here and get that interview pulled up. And when we come back, it will be our interview with the Blue Chipper, Chase Emery. And that's coming up right here next on Regalwood Rasslin, episode 14. Stand by. All right, back here on Regalwood Rasslin. Appreciate everybody who's joined us today. We're live right now on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Rumble, and Kick. YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Rumble, and Kick. The YouTube channel, of course, Wrestle Radio 860. Wrestle Radio 860 on YouTube. Twitch, Regalwood 6969. Facebook, of course, Regal, R-I-K-K-I, R-E-G-A-L. Rumble and Kick, of course, are Regalwood, respectively. Again, if you find this giant, huge monster right here, you're in the right spot. All right, up to the interview portion of the program now. Really glad to have my next guest on this week, as he's really coming up in the wrestling world, is doing a lot of great things, moving around a lot out there, and we're going to talk to him today about some things that he's got coming up, some things he's been involved in recently, and some controversial stuff, because we got to always lean into that here on Regalwood Rasslin, right? So without further ado, I do welcome to the program, and I appreciate you coming on today. This is Chase Emery. Welcome, Chase.
We're live, pal. How's it going?
It's going good, man. I appreciate you for coming on and being part of the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I always talk about my old show from back in the day, and I will tell you, man, it's always, because wrestlers, as we know, have a crazy schedule, and sometimes it's just hard to get guests booked. So anybody who's good enough and gracious enough to come on here, I always try to thank them immensely. So I want to kick it off a little bit, and you've been involved in just a thing that went kind of viral. You were kind of adjacent to that, and we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. But before we do that, tell everybody who may not know who Chase Emery is and how you got into the game.
Well, my name's Chase. My last name's Emery. I've been in the world of wrestling as a total since I was 7 years old. I started out doing amateur wrestling on the mat. Did that all throughout, my childhood, high school, and then in college. And then once I had a feeling my college wrestling career was over, I started doing professional wrestling. And I've been at that for about 6 years now. So you got to think, what is that? Since 2006. I've been involved in wrestling. That's 20 years. Yeah. I'm 27 years old.
That's a pretty good milestone. That now I know you had a lot of success in the amateur collegiate wrestling. Tell the people a little bit about your collegiate career, because that's interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I remember growing up, all the amateur wrestling tournaments are on Saturday morning. And a lot of the wrestling shows now are on Saturdays. So my whole life, Saturdays is meant for wrestling.
Yeah.
When I started out amateur wrestling, I was terrible. I was horrible.
Really?
My dad, he would take me all over the place to all these tournaments. We'd go all over North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Virginia. He even took me up to Maryland and Pennsylvania, states like that. And when I was little, I used to get beat up a lot. I would maybe win a match or two in a tournament, and that would be good enough. But I didn't getting to where I was pretty good until I was in middle school. Then that's when kids that used to beat me up when I was in elementary school, I started beating them, and that gave me the confidence, and then just kept going. And then in high school, I had success. I ended up, being a state champion in high school, and then getting recruited to wrestle at the collegiate level. But I think, growing up, building that character, I think, taking all those beatings as I did as a little kid on the weekends, at the time I hated it. But looking back, I'm like, wow, that really shaped me to be the man I am today, those beatings I took.
Yeah, I would tell you, man, and I never collegiate or high school or any amateur wrestling at all, but I was always kind of adjacent to that in my high school career, and I would see those guys training, man. I was unbelievable the grueling, just the training that the guys would go through. So it was always very impressive to me, anybody who could live in that world. How did you find the transition from amateur into professional? Was that kind of an easy flow, or did it kind of like you maybe got to relearn some things?
Well, so it's funny because I grew up as a fan. So I started watching professional wrestling on TV before I ever got into amateur wrestling. So I remember telling my dad, hey, I want to do that. So Dad was like, all right, sure. So he put me into amateur wrestling, and that, and then, I I didn't, that's not what I wanted to do, but I, ended up sticking with it. And then I fell in love with amateur wrestling to the point where I kind of got out of pro wrestling. And then towards the end, that I made that transition back. So I kind of already knew kind of what I was getting myself into. Just, I had a little bit of knowledge going in. So, but it was still very hard transition. And amateur wrestling, you're taught not to show any emotion.
Yeah.
You don't want to give your opponent, if you have a hurt arm, don't let your opponent know. Don't sell it. Don't show that. But professional wrestling, you do the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to kind of give them that target there. That it's just interesting, man, that transition. And what do you remember? So I know it's a big difference between going out in front of an amateur crowd into a professional crowd. But do you remember that first time you went out in front, and how did that find you as far as now I'm actually in a whole different world?
Well, I remember, especially when I won a state title, that the state championship for North Carolina, it's in the Greensboro Coliseum, which is a big arena.
Yep.
It's huge,
and
that thing was packed. I remember my senior year when I won a state title, and I remember thinking, like all these people, I'm just gonna pretend like nobody's watching my match. So when I went out there, I wasn't nervous at all. I just pretended nobody's watching, even though there was well over thousands of people in there. And then I remember my first pro wrestling show. It was a very small crowd, probably about 50 people. I just remember thinking, "Oh gosh, everybody's watching it."
Yeah.
And I was very nervous. More nervous going out in front of 50 people than I was, doing amateur wrestling, in front of thousands. It was a whole different ball game. But over the years of doing it, I become, you get more comfortable being in front of a crowd. So.
Yeah, it just comes with repetition more than anything else.
Absolutely.
But, just getting like I said, getting those reps. You have all the athletic ability in the world. I mean, I've watched some of your stuff, man. It's just fantastic. Just fantastic in ring work. What part do you feel it as far as like the pro stuff? The physical, of course, is very important, but the psychological, right? Because I feel like, and I'm old school, that. Back in the day, I mean, we relied more heavily on the psychological aspect of it, and now it's transitioned. And I know things change, I get it, but it's more like a lot more than athleticism, right? Than may have been back in my day, as we say. But how do you feel? How do you merge those two worlds, the psychology and the physical?
Well, I feel like it could be. You see a lot of people doing athletic stuff, but a lot of times they're just doing it for no reason. You'll see some guy do a move and he turns his back and takes off running and hits 2 cartwheels, and you're like, what the heck? Why didn't he just punch the guy? Or why didn't he he took 10 steps to take 1 step forward. So anytime I'm in a match, I'm thinking, I don't want to take 5 steps to take 1 step forward. I want to take 1 step, and that 1 step's forward. I like to watch a lot of old professional wrestling matches.
Yeah.
And to me, the in-ring is so much more solid and crisp. Everything they do, it makes sense. You never watch somebody and you think, oh God, like that was just goofy looking, or why would this muscular, jacked up guy do that? No, you watch the stuff now. Like you said, they're very athletic, but sometimes if I'm into a match and then the guy will, like I said, he'll go up top and do a cartwheel, and then you're just like, what? Like that's just unrealistic. And so I try to, if I do something athletic, which I can do the cartwheels and crap like that, but if I'm in a fight, why would I need to do a cartwheel?
Yeah,
kind of thing.
And it goes back, and I'm so glad you have that mindset, man, because it's awesome that's continuing on even in the state we're in now. But it is, that suspension of disbelief, right? And right. If I can't, if I have to suspend my disbelief so much as to exactly what you're talking about, if you're leaping around and doing all the cartwheels and stuff, which is fine again, but if you're doing that, why are you doing that? This has to make sense, right?
Exactly.
And so that I think that's very important. I'm glad that that you're kind of bringing that bringing that forward also.
And if you want to watch somebody that, I like to watch old school, old, 90s Eddie Guerrero matches. If you look, gosh, he's doing, a lot of stuff that's kind of, gymnastics like, but man, he's doing it and it has a purpose. He's doing it and he's, doing it to get an upper advantage on his opponent.
Yeah.
Guys like Rey Mysterio too.
Well, look at Muda. I mean, if you want to go back really, really old school, I mean, Muda was a master at that stuff, and he would do a cartwheel, but that cartwheel was to build up that momentum for that elbow right into the corner, which was always, man, and stuff like that is, you can suspend that disbelief.
Right.
But if it's like you said, and you're exactly right, if it's not for a reason, then why do it? Are you one of the guys who likes to kind of plan everything out ahead of time, or do you like to call it in the ring, as we say, or how do you go about putting together a match?
It's funny. I was so when I originally started out in professional wrestling, I started out in this little town called Lincoln, North Carolina. And I remember my trainer at the time, he's a great guy. I love him. But this is the guy that broke me in. He taught me to plan out everything in the back. I remember very early planning stuff, and I just never set well with me, just like, I was, I remember thinking like in my first or second ever professional wrestling match, thinking, man, I just don't see like the true pros just planning out everything. And as I've gotten over the years, I got smarter.
Yeah.
Now I don't like planning, because if you plan out something in the back and it, what happens if the crowds react in a different way, or, or you go out there and the guy, the guy you're wrestling, unfortunately, what if he sustains like a little minor injury or something? You got to work around that. Being able to call it on the fly. Last night I had a match. They told me who I was wrestling. I didn't see the guy or talk to the guy till it got to the ring.
Yeah.
And that's how I like it.
Yeah.
I don't even like, I know some people are like, well, I just want to go over this and that and that, and sure, I'll play, I'll be a nice guy. But here's the thing, like, I kind of wish we could get back to the day where there's two separate locker rooms.
Yeah.
I would love, and even if there was two separate locker rooms, and nowadays, what happened? People would be messaging each other, but hey man, what do you want to do out there?
Yeah. You'd be FaceTiming in the locker room, right?
Right. So, but I'm the complete opposite. I want to go out there, and whatever happens, it happens.
Well, let me just tell you, I immensely respect that aspect of your game, because I will tell you, man, there were times back in the old days where we would have to do some different dressing room stuff, and I had a spot exactly like that where didn't see the guy till he walked to the ring, and we just called it everything right there, and it does flow better. I mean, what you're always going to know your finish. Promoter's going to give you that, but as far as doing that, getting it done in the ring, man, as long as you understand the psychology, you can make it work.
Absolutely.
And of course, a lot of it depends on the other guy too, what his level is. But that's awesome, man, and much respect to you for being one of those guys, because I've always found it, to me, it's more. I know we live in the post kayfabe world and all that nonsense, but to me, it's you would almost say almost more real. You know what I mean? Because it's happening in real time. It's not something that you went over for an hour and a half in the back. So yeah, that's always been a big thing to me. Yeah. When you walk through that curtain, do you hear the crowd first, or you immediately go straight into your match with your opponent? Do you kind of work that crowd? I know you work babyface mostly.
It honestly, it kind of depends where I'm at too, like the environment. So let's say we're in West Virginia at a local fair, or a fair show where there's 100 people. I'm going to work the crowd a little bit, have some fun, because it's a fair show. But if we're, let's say, it's somewhere on TV, or somewhere that's posting it somewhere, and it's presented as more kind of serious atmosphere, I'm just going to walk straight to the ring.
Yeah.
It's there for business, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have the right. We've never met. We talked about that a little bit briefly before, but man, I'm telling you, it sounded like you got all the right tools in play. Who did you train under?
So I trained under Lodi, who was in WCW in Charlotte. Awesome. And I was also lucky, and I'm very privileged in the fact that I was trained by Arn Anderson as well.
Wow. That's huge.
So when I started training at Lodi's, I was about 6 months or 7 months in. I started going to Lodi's in Charlotte, and this was around right when COVID happened. And I remember Arn's son Brock, he showed up.
Yeah.
So I was only a few months in, so I was super green. Brock was brand new, and COVID just happened. Everything shut down, but we were still training. And Arn would be there, and a lot of times nobody else would show up, so it'd just be me, Brock, Arn, and Lodi. It'd be very small classes, and that's where I learned the most, man.
Wow.
I remember Arn going over, showing us how to work a body part, things like that. Like, I'm very big on, I love watching guys, or, I love doing it when I can, getting in there during that heat, working a body part, grabbing holds and stuff. I love that stuff.
Man, that I did not know that. That is Arn Anderson, of course. I mean, if you came up in anywhere near the South back in the NWA days, I mean, of course, Arn was. Yeah. I mean, he's Arn, right? So,
yeah.
So tell me some interesting stories about Arn, man. Tell me what was some of the best advice Arn gave you?
Well, I remember one of the first times I ever got in the ring, and he was there. He told me I had he told me, because we were doing some drills, and I was taking, I think it was like a hip toss, and we were like feeding into stuff, and he told me I had a very good like ring presence of knowing where I was at. And I remember I kind of was like, wow, that's a big compliment, because I only been in the ring for a few months.
Yeah.
And I used to remember Arn telling us, it shows never, we're young, but we don't want to beat up our bodies, right? So I remember, I was working with Brock at a show. I think we were somewhere on the coast of North Carolina, and I remember me and him, we had a match, and I remember Arn was big on us. He was like, guys, don't go on the outside, keep all the action in the ring, because you see so many matches now, especially independents or even WWE. The match starts, they start something, next thing you know, 30 seconds later, they're on the floor.
Yeah.
I'm like, good Lord,
yeah.
Already on the floor, the match is won inside the ring. So, if you especially watch a lot of my matches, I like to stay inside the ring. I'm not going to, I see a lot of guys doing, bumps on the apron, and I'm like, why? Why are you doing that? Yeah. I'd understand if it was, WrestleMania, 80,000 people are there. That's when you do that stuff.
Sure.
Dives to the outside. I'd understand if, there was 30,000, 50,000 people out, but why are you diving outside of the ring? No padding or anything.
Yeah.
I'm trying. I think. We wrestle. You're going to wrestle. You wrestle your hardest. Give the fans a good match. And work hard, but you can do that all inside the ring and being safe.
Absolutely, man. I mean, you're so right, and these points you're making, I hope you're pushing that out to the guys who are coming up under you. You're young.
Yeah, that's right.
You're young, and you got your whole career ahead of you. But just talking to you this little bit of time, we've been talking 20 minutes, and I you got the right mentality, man, and I hope you're paying that forward, because the guys coming up, like we were talking about earlier, if it don't make sense, why are we doing it? And I think that we need guys like you who still represent, and even though you're again young, you're in my world, in my mind, you're representing the old school. So God bless Chase Emery for that. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that.
I will tell you too, man. Lodi is a great guy. I interviewed Lodi on my original radio show back in the some years back, and Lodi's he's just dynamite. I've never heard a bad thing about Lodi. Tell me a good Lodi story.
I remember one of my first, probably my first or second practice there. Lodi, he was going over, I think, just like a clothesline or something. Somebody was brand new. And I remember, we were kind of all in the ring, and I remember I'm just standing there, and I'm standing kind of, like I am right now, I'm just kind of square. Lodi's kind of 2 or 3 feet in front of me, and he's his back's turned. And I remember he's going over a clothesline, showing kind of going, and all of a sudden he just turns around. And he was like, yeah, and it goes like this, and turns around, and just boom, just nails me. And I didn't mean to take the bump, but I did. It was real. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I liked his style of training. Lodi, he's big on working on your body, getting in shape. He taught me making things nice and snug in safe places. This is you don't ever this is the money maker right here. Don't ever do anything to jeopardize this. But the body's you got meat right here, upper back. That's
Sure.
where the meat. So if you want to you can lay it in some, make that noise. It makes it all look more real.
Yeah, it's just again, I mean that's great stuff, and again, Lodi are really really good. Do you keep in touch with him?
Absolutely, yeah. I talked to him. Was it Saturday night? Yeah, I texted him after the show I was at.
Awesome.
I was up in Pennsylvania, and I sent him some photos of the show because he used to work at that promotion years ago, and I kind of sent him the photos.
Yeah.
I was going to say if he noticed anything, and he sent me a message back. He was like, "Hey, I know that building." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I'm in." Told him the promotion, and he was like, "Yeah. It's a good place."
How's his health? I know he had another heart thing not too long ago.
I saw him a couple weeks ago, and he hasn't been in the ring any this year. But I don't know. He's a tough dude.
Yeah.
He's in my prayers, and I'm always praying for him. But I think he's gonna get better. He's always he's the type of guy who's gonna stay in shape, so that's good. But last time I saw him, he wasn't looking like the Lodi I met. I'll just say that. But I know he's going to get back to where he was.
Yeah, absolutely. He's always strong, and he's strong. He's got a strong mind too, and his faith. I know his faith is super strong. So always good thoughts out to the Lodi man. You been overseas yet? I think I read somewhere did you do a Japan thing yet?
Yeah. So I this year, man, I wrestled back in February. I went out to Japan for 10 days. I did 2 shows for a company called Pro Wrestling Noah.
Yeah.
And did some training. Did that. That was nice. That was the first time I ever wrestled outside the United States. It was in Japan. And then a couple months later in April, I did a tour in England for a company called LDN Wrestling. They do shows all over, England, all over the outskirts of London. So that was a great experience. I did 12 shows in, was it 14 days? So I was busy.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. That is super busy.
Working twice a night.
Oh.
Did 24 matches. Yep.
That's unheard of.
Yeah. I was the first match of the show. I would go out and then I would, be the last match. So
that's crazy. How did you find Japan? I've always wanted to go, man, and heard nothing but great stories about those fans and how different it is. How did you find Japan?
Well, I've always heard people say, "Oh, the Japan, the crowd." I've heard some people say it's hard to wrestle in front of the crowd because they're very quiet.
Yeah, I
actually really liked it because they respect the business so much and respect wrestlers so much. I remember I did a simple shoulder tackle. They started applauding. You know, you're down here in the South, you might hear one person in the back say that looked weak. That type of thing. But in Japan, man, they respect the mat wrestling. They just have so much respect for professional wrestling. And Japanese as a culture, I think just the people they show up to the shows, they're nicely dressed. You see people in suits, and the women are nicely dressed, and you're like, wow, you go to some of these shows in the South, and I love the fans in the South, but sometimes they show up, they just got off work, and
you don't know what you might see walk across the floor.
Right. But it's a cult. It was a culture shock for me. Just how the fans were. But I loved wrestling in front of the Japanese people. Now the wrestlers, man, there's a lot of bad dudes over there. I walk around the locker room. I'm one of the only guys that has the cauliflower ear. You go over to Japan, I was just a normal dude. Everybody, both their ears, they're all cauliflowered up. They take training over there a whole another level than America does. The Japanese training, I remember a couple of they call them young boys for Noah. They were before the show. They were in the ring doing some holds and stuff, and I was just watching, and I was like, wow, like the stuff they were doing, going over holds, and I'm like, they're really learning professional wrestling. They weren't going over spots or
Yeah.
dives or any of that bull crap.
Right.
They were going over holds, stuff like that, counters, mat wrestling. And after they did that, they went outside the ring, and I swear they did 500 squats.
Wow.
Their squats, and they were counting them out. They were counting them out in Japanese, just down, no
Oh.
breaks. And I'm like, dang, I'm watching. I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah.
They're going deep too. They're not doing half. They're
Yeah.
they're going like their butts that close to touching the ground.
Jeez, I guess it's that phenomenal just training that they go through, and the like you said, it's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
If some of our guys over here would put in a quarter of the time that they're putting in training,
Right.
maybe we wouldn't be in the shape we're in some of these events that we see. Let me ask you this, because I'm again never been to Japan. The difference in what we know about wrestling in the United States now, since the curtain is ripped off, not even drawn back, it's ripped off. How's it over there as far as let's just say the kayfabe over there? Does that still live in Japan?
Yeah. I think if you want to, like, if it was like Japanese wrestling is the closest to like what like an old school sense of kayfabe, believability.
Yeah.
The fans over there, they treat it like it's a legitimate contest sport. It's not there for the entertainment. Now there is promotions out there that they do, some goofy stuff. But like the New Japan, the All Japan, the Noahs, they're it's legitimate.
Yeah. It's just so interesting how, and it is so different. I was watching some older Japanese stuff the other day. Again, watching Muda, and just the way that that it's presented, and like you said, it's presented as an actual sporting contest and not just just a show. So it's amazing to me how that's maintained over there, and I guess it's because the promoters never pulled events, right? They just kind of kept it going as this is what it is.
Yeah,
it's just insane to me. Besides Chase Emery, who's someone that you who's out there right now that you think should deserve a lot more recognition than they're currently getting? Besides you, of course.
There's another wrestler out there named Christopher Prince. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's a guy that it's funny. When I started wrestling in Lincoln before I ever went to Lodi's, I was about a week in and he showed up. He's originally from that town, Lincoln, North Carolina.
Lincoln, yeah.
And I remember we met, and we weren't best friends or really even friends right away. But then over the years we became really close, and he's a guy. He kind of reminds me of myself. He's, how he goes about, wrestling as a whole. Very, very good wrestler, very good in ring. He's the only criticism he's ever really gotten was his size. He's always been kind of small, but he's getting there. He's putting on size. He's putting in the work. I think everybody should be booking him anywhere. Like me and him, we get booked on all the same shows. Like here in the next month, we'll be going up to West Virginia together, and the next day traveling to Nashville, Tennessee for a show. So we're making some towns together.
That's awesome. That's great. Talking with Chase Emery here on Regalwood Rasslin. Glad to have Chase with us today. Of course, Chase is on Facebook at Chase Emery. Is that right, on Facebook?
Mm-hmm.
Where else can other people get a hold of you besides Facebook, Chase?
If you see me on Instagram, it's Chase_Emery, EMERY _wrestling. DM me on there, or if you want to do it on X or Twitter, Chase_Emery 98.
Awesome. Well, absolutely reach out to Chase Emery, because the guy is absolutely got the right mind frame. Moving forward here a little bit, Chase, if you could face any wrestler from any era, from the 1800s to today, who would be the one person that you would want to kind of get in the ring with and go around?
Oh man, I mean, there's a few, dude. Like, go back of course you got guys like Lou Thez. You'd be great to get in the ring with him.
Can you imagine the library, the knowledge?
Yeah, I'm
Lou?
sure I would learn a thing or two after that. Pat Armstrong.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Yeah.
I would love to, and the guy that trained me, Lodi, he was, he got in the ring with Eddie Guerrero. That would be great. Somebody like Eddie Guerrero, just how good he was back in the day. But yeah, probably those three. I would love to get a chance to wrestle with them.
You mentioned earlier in the interview that you had been around with including your collegiate stuff 20 years. What keeps you passionate about this thing? What keeps driving you forward to keep doing it?
I don't know. Of course, there's been times where I've wanted to quit. Sometimes you lose passion, but I think it's just so put in with my identity now. I've done it for so long that it's just become a discipline of mine. It's like you wake up, you brush your teeth. I wake up, I brush my teeth, and then that night I wrestle, that kind of thing. Same thing with going to the gym. I remember I used to hate working out. I hated lifting weights, but now I do it almost every day, and it's just a part of my routine, part of me.
Yeah, it's just the daily, just part of the
Yep.
daily activities. Yeah, I got you.
Yep.
Who's one of the funniest people you've encountered in the locker room? Really made you just hold your gut.
Um, there's a few. Let's see. You ever heard of a guy named Ace Montana up in Virginia? He's been under fire for some questionable things here lately. He's some negative heat, but he's a funny guy. He makes me laugh. Christopher Prince, he's another funny guy. Um, I'm trying to think who else is funny. Um, I'm sure somebody else will probably come to me
Yeah.
and say that. But those two guys, Ace Montana, every time I'm around him, I just start laughing. I hadn't seen him in a couple of years, but he's just one of those guys where it's just you start laughing when you see him because how funny he is.
Yeah, just keeps it moving along. That's always good to have that in the locker room. I was never a big rib guy. I mean, I but as far as if you can hold my attention with just being a funny guy, I think it breaks the monotony of putting stuff together and because I transitioned more into the promotion stuff there toward the end, but that's a lot of aggravation, and to have somebody in there to kind of break that is always kind of a nice. That's why I asked that question.
Yep.
So let's move into this thing with Nick Hamrick. I guess first off, I cannot believe that in 2026 somebody actually got that heated over a heel doing heel things. What's your opinion of that thing? And is it legit? I mean, honestly, because it's hard for me to believe that she legitimately got that upset over him yelling at her kid.
Well, I've told people this before. A lot of people love to say, "Oh, kayfabe's dead. Everybody knows it's work." Well, some people don't. There's new. Some people they don't know that how wrestling operates, and it was Bobby Fulton. He posted on Facebook about this, and he said, some people only watch WWE. WWE, they don't really have heels and baby faces like they used to. So if they watch WWE, that's all they watch. They don't see somebody, you know, especially on like Raw or SmackDown, going to the crowd and saying stuff like that. Um, I've wrestled Nick Hamrick a few times. He's a really good bad guy. He knows his role, and I didn't even know it happened till the next day. Like I didn't know going into the match that had happened before. We're wrestling in Logan, West Virginia. It's the Freedom Festival in that town. So there's a lot, it's a fair show. There's about 150, 200 people. We're in the town. It's an outside show. We're here. Everybody's here to have fun. And he did his job.
Yeah.
You can't criticize him for that. And I like that he did that because I was wondering why they were cheering for me so hard during that match because I remember the match before. I'm sitting there and the crowd's dead. There ain't nobody's. I'm like, dang, this is gonna be a tough crowd.
Yeah.
We go out there and I'm in the ring. They're all cheering for me, chanting. I'm like, holy crap, They. I'm like, how do they know who? I get. They're reading my tights. That's why they're yelling my name. But I'm like, they don't know who I am. Why do they care so much? So I'm happy Nick Hamrick did that, and it's funny because his went. Everybody was talking about his, but there was actually another woman
I saw that.
who posted about an earlier match,
Yeah.
and that one actually, I looked at that one. That actually had like over 1,000 like likes and shares and whatever.
Yeah.
And that one was the more like, I guess it had more like viral. It had more viral numbers. But the one, Nick Hammer, that's the one everybody was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that the other one was at the same show.
Same show. That was the first
Wow.
match. Me and Nick Hammer were the fourth match. Two different women. Two different women that got upset.
It staggers my imagination, and there was some of course, because you go down the rabbit hole. Some of the comments in that thing was, and people were just right there with her, like nobody would ever talk to my child that way, and I would be in jail, and all of this nonsense. And like you people would not have made it in the 80s and 90s. Where were you during the Attitude Era? For God's sakes.
Yep. See, that's just the fans these days. It's the heel and babyface concept. It's kind of a lost art. So when they see it, they're not used to it. And if that woman, I was going to comment on Facebook on that woman's post, but she turned the comments off. I was going to tell her, hey, well, I'm sorry this happened. Buy a ticket for the next show, and we'll make it up to you.
Exactly.
I'll make it up to you. I'll give Nick Hamrick a little pop in the mouth for you.
Yeah, with your name on it. That is just dynamite stuff. And I have a short clip here of that match. If you'll indulge me, we'll take a quick look at it. But this is from that match, and you said your comment I thought was spot on. You said after witnessing the dastardly Nick Hamrick making kids in the crowd cry, I knew I could save the day to stand up for the kids and hashtag good guys. So that's just wizardry, man, and good on you for that. Let's play this real quick, and we'll come right back with more with Chase. Let me get my stuff out of the way here if I can forget. Yeah, here we go. Here it
is. Man, look at that time.
Man, that's really really great stuff, and it looks like a pretty good crowd. But like you said, kayfabe lives, believe it or not, in 2026, and apparently it lives.
Oh yeah, you go to those towns in West Virginia and Kentucky, southeastern Kentucky, West Virginia. Those people believe it's real.
Yeah, still hanging on.
I'll be honest, I like being a good guy up there because that's still a town where you say the wrong thing, they might be waiting for you in the parking lot.
Yeah, it could get a little dangerous. Dangerous. Man, great stuff, Chase. I'm really impressed with you and what you got going on. Tell me what's next for Chase Emery. What you got coming up, man? What are you excited about that's coming up soon?
Oh, well, I got a lot of shows coming up. Let's see. Let's see. This weekend I'm pretty local. On July 3rd, I'm going to be in Bowling Springs, South Carolina, wrestling. And then 4th of July, I'll be right up the road from myself in Gilkey, North Carolina. So that's really close shows to where I live. And then after that, I'm hitting the road next week. I'm going to be up in Kentucky doing a couple of fair shows. And then I'll be in Georgia on July 11th for a company called Lariato. It's Luke Gallows promotion.
Oh, yeah.
And then the next day I'll be in Charleston, South Carolina for Old School Championship Wrestling.
Good promotion. Yeah.
That's a very good promotion. Yeah. Joe Blumenfield, he does a good job running it. Bob Keller. He does a good job of holding order in the locker room.
Yes.
And I just got to say, I love Bob Keller.
Yes.
Bob Keller's helped me so much in my career. For some reason he likes me. He always says, he's always like, what does he always say? I've done so much for you. He's so And it's funny because I'm not a big. I know you say you're not a big rib guy. I'm not really either. But
Yeah.
when you get me and like Christopher Prince together, we kind of mess with Bob.
With
And
Bob, yeah.
I feel bad sometimes because I love Bob, but
Yeah.
we mess with him sometimes.
Bob is awesome. I had him on a few weeks ago, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
could just sit and just let. But I think I've even said it a few times. One of the easiest interviews I've ever done because he just talked the whole time, and it was great.
I love his voice, his accent. It gets
Yeah.
me, especially gets riled up. And then I'm just doing independents all over. I'm all over the Southeast, man. I wrestle in Kentucky, West Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia. I got a big match against Carlito coming up on August 1st up in West Virginia. I've wrestled Carlito before, but it was in like a 3-way match.
Yeah.
And he's a guy I would love to go on like a wrestling tour and wrestle every night. He's that good.
Yeah.
And then August 2nd, that's the big one down in Abbeville, South Carolina.
Yes.
I'm ready for that one, Wrestle Force. And then I'll just say in October, late October, I am going back to England for another tour.
Wow, man, that's awesome, and continued success, bro. I hope that you get everything that you want out of this thing, and I hope it goes your way. Because you're doing the right things, you're doing the right work. The big August 2nd show is coming up, and I know that's right down the street from where I'm at. I'm actually going to try. I usually don't get out to shows anymore because of other things, but I'm going to try to make that one because Hoss has done a lot of work on that show. He's really promoted the crap out of it, and he's put together what I think is a really good card. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, and I don't know how deep if you want to even go into it, but I don't know if you're aware or not. But a couple of weeks ago, your name came up in an interview with Thomas Simpson, and I didn't know if maybe you had any kind of rebut to that, or if you wanted to even address it, or if you don't, I respect that completely as well.
I met Thomas Simpson back in 2020. The first time I met him was in Union, South Carolina. He was booking for a company called Pro Wrestling Union.
Yep.
He was always very nice to me. Gave me a lot of good advice. And then over the years, we've always been good friends.
Yeah.
He's always sent me, messages and stuff. He's helped me out. He sometimes has told me the stuff I didn't want to hear.
Sure.
That helped me.
Yeah.
A lot of times, these guys, and especially these modern guys in wrestling, they just want to hear what they want to hear. They don't want to hear. They don't want to hear, hey, that didn't look good. Don't maybe try it this way. They're thinking, oh, this guy's he's shitting on my stuff.
Shitting on my stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But no, you need to hear that. So I really like how Thomas, he would tell me the stuff I didn't want to hear, and that helped me even more. But yeah, I've always had a lot of respect for Thomas. I used to think, especially earlier, in my career when I had him, he was a great mind for the business. But I did watch the podcast, the interview you and him had.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to the stuff he's saying, and I'm just like, dude, this isn't the guy that I knew, 5 years ago. So I'll just start with this. So after Thomas, got removed from Pro Wrestling Union, he would always send me every few months, a message saying he was going to book me. And I'd be like, absolutely, dude. Book me for a show. Well, he didn't cancel it. Then a few months later, he booked me for another show. Oh, it's going to be here. You're going to wrestle this guy. Okay, good. Cancel the show.
Yeah.
Well, and then I started here in the locker room early this year. Some guys would be like, yeah, Thomas Simpson, he booked me for this show, but he canceled it. But he sent us our money. I'd be like, he sent you your money? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, he's booked me for over 15, 20 shows, but he's never sent me money.
Yeah. So
I just gotta say, I mean, like, if Tom, a true friend, I don't understand how, and these are guys he's not really, I don't think he's, as close with as he was with me.
Sure.
If he's doing that, like, I don't understand why I'm putting these dates down that he's sending me.
Sure.
And if another promoter says, hey, I'd like to, I'd like to book you for this date. I'm like, oh, sorry, man, I'm booked for for I'm booked for Thomas on this date. If I give somebody my word, I'm going to take them up on that. I'm not going to say, oh, I can't do your show now. Somebody else is booking me. No, I said yes to him first. So I keep my word. But, so I lost some bookings to other promotions because I would say, hey, on July 3rd, I can't do your show. I'm booked. And then, Thomas a week or two would cancel it. And then I'd reach back out like, hey, I'm sorry, but, that show got canceled. Are you guys still needing me? They're like, nah, we got that spot filled. So, that would kind of hurt me some. So, I would say Thomas, if he's doing that, why am I not getting that money? So he's owing me money from that. And that's when we're supposedly friends. And I watched your guys, do the interview, and he says he helped me get to Japan. I would really like to know how Thomas helped me get to Japan. Because here's the thing, I did try out. I won that tryout. The winner of that tryout got their flight, everything paid for to Japan. I didn't spend a dime. I didn't spend any money out of my pocket getting over there. They paid for my plane ticket. I got over there. Sonny Ono helped me get to Japan.
Okay.
And then he says he helped me get to England. Well, I really like to know how. I will say, while I was over there, he was nice enough to, he kept messaging me, asking me if I'd had a real English meal or a real British meal. And I was like, no, Thomas, I haven't, trying to stay on my diet, trying to, it's hard over here because I'm on the go, but, I'm trying, and he sent me $200. He didn't have to do that. That was very nice of him. But I saw he said on here that, I rode in his car to all these shows. He drove me to shows 4 times. He drove me 2 times to a show. He got me booked in Georgia. He got me booked there 3 times, but 1 time I drove myself. And then he drove me 2 times to Count Grogg's Gouge show up in like the Raleigh, Peakway Arena area.
Yeah.
And then 1 time I drove him. So I really don't know where he's coming up with this. Oh, he made it sound like he's taking me to all these shows. Not the case. He was nice enough to take me, those few times, but it's not as much as he's saying. And the whole thing about the Abbeville show that he was running before, see, he reached out to me, this was like in May, and said he was running on the 4th of July. Well, the show that he had planned on May 30th got canceled. And again, I'm in a locker room in Kentucky, and I hear a few of the boys say, yeah, Thomas Simpson canceled his show, but they sent me our money. I'm thinking, again, a show that got canceled that Thomas is saying he's going to pay me this gets canceled, and he's sending them their money. I didn't get a dime. So, July 24th, he says he's running. Sure, Thomas, I'll be there at Abbeville. Absolutely. He said on here he was going to pay me $250. He told me $200. Okay. Then this is probably a couple weeks later. Hoss Haygood and Bob Keller reach out to me about another show in Abbeville. This one's a week later. Okay, sure. Thomas is wanting to call me and all this stuff. This is a couple days after I agreed to that, that dating for Bob and Hoss. Thomas is reaching out, trying to call me. I'm like, what's up, man? He says, are you doing that show in Abbeville? And I said, are you talking about the one that Bob Keller and Haas are running? He's like, yeah. I said, yeah. And then he says, and you're going to do mine? I said, well, yeah. And then he gets all mad.
Yeah.
So I tell Thomas, I said, look, I would understand if their show was, let's say if it was like the same weekend or like, maybe a week before. Even if it was a week before, I would kind of understand you getting mad. Because he kept saying, oh, Abbeville, it can't have 2 big shows. It can't have 2 big shows. It can't handle it. And I said, well, Thomas, yours is the week before. So what you're saying is your show's probably going to draw and their show's not. And he was like, well, that could happen. And then he gets all hurt and he cancels. I'm like, well, because what I'm thinking is, before he even told me he's mad and he canceled, I'm thinking, here's a guy who booked me for 15 to 20 shows in the past few years, canceled every single one.
Yeah.
And now he's saying he's going to book me for a show, but now he's wanting me to also say no to another promotion.
Right.
I never claim I'm a genius, but I'm not dumb. Okay.
Yeah. And
Thomas is a math wizard.
Yes.
So let's play with some, probability. The probability of Thomas canceling on me and me not getting anything, okay, is likely. So, and then if I already tell Bob and them no, there's another show going.
Yeah.
And then I keep saying I get these $50 payoffs. Thomas doesn't know how much I'm getting paid at these other shows.
Right.
So, and then it's, money. Sure. I think we wrestle, we get paid for money, but it's also reps for me.
Sure.
Okay. Money and reps. I want to be wrestling and working as much as possible. So I'm thinking, the probability, the history and stuff, if Thomas cancels and then I tell them no, I'm out of 2 shows.
Yeah.
So what am I supposed to do? Okay.
Yeah.
Thomas, I'm friends with him, but he keeps saying all this loyalty. Look, this is this modern wrestling. This is what's kind of wrong with modern wrestling, in my opinion, is there's been so many people, that has, let's say 2 guys have beef with each other. Then the friend of one of those guys will say, well, screw him too. I don't, I'm not working. Do you know how many of my friends hate Thomas Simpson?
I can imagine.
So many of them.
I can imagine.
I've heard, and then they'll say, well, Chase, what do you think of him? I'm going to say, he's always been good to me.
Yeah.
Just because you hate him doesn't mean I'm going to hate him.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's fair. Yeah.
So, and that's the thing is, Thomas, just because you hate Haas doesn't mean I have to. Haas has been good to me. Haas brought me up to Maryland to wrestle a couple years ago. Bob Keller has helped me so much.
Yeah.
And I would honestly, Thomas, be even safe to say he's probably helped me more than you have.
Wow. Wow.
I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
With all the shows he's put me on and all the opportunities, I'm sorry, Thomas, but Bob Keller's my boy. I love Bob Keller.
Same.
So, and Thomas can't tell me where I can and can't work.
Well, Chase, and I'm glad you said that. And if you watched that thing, you saw that I pushed back on him a little bit on that. And my thing was, and I still stand by this. If you're not under any sort of contract, and you're not you're not beholden to a company or an individual, whatever it may be, I just don't know how, even out of loyalty for the loyalty's sake, I get all of that. But this, at the end of the day, Chase, is what? It is a business.
A business. And
you're a businessman. And so I get, to an extent, I get the loyalty thing, but I also know that I'm loyal to my wallet above all else. So I can so I get what you're saying, and I'm glad and I respect you so much for taking the time to address it and to rebut it, because I felt like I don't want to leave anything laying out there. And I've always said this show's for everybody. It's for you to come on, and this is your platform. And so much respect to you for addressing it and clearing some of the air on that thing. But my whole sticking point on it, and it still remains, is if I'm not under contract to you, then I don't know how you can tell me where and when I can work. So I thought maybe you would see it that way, but it's awesome to hear you say it. So that's cool.
Exactly. And I remember I was watching your guys' interview, and Thomas is going off on how it's a generational problem. Well, let's be honest here. Modern, older guys back in the day, do you think guys like Arn Anderson, Tully, do you think Ole, were they wrestling for friendships?
Absolutely not.
They're wrestling for money.
For that jack. That's why they telling Arn went to the Fed. They get that money.
It's, and Thomas, he said something that he doesn't hold any grudge to guys like Luke Gallows or John Schuyler for wrestling. They make a living off money. Mm-hmm. Or they make a living off wrestling.
Yeah. Right.
So, well, Thomas knows what I do for work. And right now during the summertime, I wrestle for a living. It's Monday. Right now, well, this is being taped, of course, but right now, I mean, this is, I'm not at work right now.
Yeah.
Right now during the summer, I wrestle for a living. In August, I'll be wrestling for a living.
Yeah.
So Thomas, I am right now wrestling for a living.
For a living. Yeah. Let me ask you this, Chase, and I don't want to belabor this that long, but I did have a question that came up when you were doing your rebuttal there. Did you ever ask him about the money that was being sent out and why you weren't getting your taste?
I didn't. I don't know, just because I didn't really want to start anything with him.
Sure.
Because, I don't know. It was kind of like, well, he's helped me, all these years. He's been a good friend, and I don't want to start anything, and I was going to, say something along the lines if something did happen, because I've had friends of mine that have been close with Thomas say, they've said to me all these years, well, one day he's going to turn on you. And, I remember thinking, oh, well, one day it might happen. And then he did. He turned on me, said that what did he say? He's closed the bridge or on that, or blew that bridge up.
Blew that up, something like those lines, yeah.
And then, that he closed his fist, and it's ready to punch.
Yeah.
I think that was another quote of his.
It was.
To me. So it looks like, he don't want to be, friends anymore. So now, I've came out and I've said, hey, if anybody brings them up to me, I don't bury Thomas. I don't say anything negative. All I say is, oh yeah, Thomas, he owes me money. he owes me the money. He owes me for all those shows that he tried to book. But no, I never brought it up to him when we were still, when he was messaging me and stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny because he not only canceled his Abbeville show on me, but then that weekend, whenever he had his falling out with me, he got me booked on a show up in for Count Grog for a Gouge. So we were going to ride up together, and then I got booked for a company called FWE up in Cary, North Carolina. So I was going to double shot. I was going to do that show earlier and make the double shot. Well, the show he got me booked on, of course, he cancels that on me. And then it's funny, I'm in the locker room that weekend, and the guy I was going to work with, who he had also booked, I hear over a conversation that guy, even though the match was canceled, he didn't go to the show, he received his money. So
that is unusual. That is very, I'm even struggling with that a little bit. I mean, was there a reason, and if so, what was it?
I don't know.
We don't know. Yeah.
So I do have that question about, if you say you're my friend and stuff, why is all this happening? I mean, that's my whole thing. I'm not going to bash Thomas, because he has helped me a lot. He's, I think deep down, he's a good guy. I just don't know what's gotten into him last, especially this year. I mean, he's doing a lot of things where I'm just like, that's not the guy I knew, a few years ago. And all this, thing about, I remember he told me, he said about all this loyalty and friendship stuff. And he said, I have a lot to learn about the business. And I'm like, Thomas, this isn't all friends wrestling.
Right.
That's something, that's something he said before about these promotions. Cause he's made fun of guys for, all they book is their friends. And stuff.
Yeah.
So, I know Thomas says he's going to run in January, so I guess he can call the promotion All Friends Wrestling if it's just going to be all of his friends. Hope it does good, Thomas. Hope you draw a lot. Hope you make a lot of money. But we'll see. Thomas Simpson presents All Friends Wrestling.
All Friends Wrestling. That could be something for the ages. Well, Chase, let me just and we'll close this out with this. And I know the thing about the bridges being blown up and everything, but again, this is wrestling. We've seen vicious, bitter enemies become great friends. And is that door open to you, at least in the future, were there to be some mending of the bridges here?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. See, it's funny when I was listening to that, Thomas was like, "Oh, I blocked him on everything," and I was like, "No, he didn't." So I looked it up and I was like, "Wow." Yeah, I guess he did. I hadn't even noticed. And I was like, oh man, well, I was like, he blocked me on Facebook, and then I think it was like Instagram or something. He blocked me on. I was like, well, you know, I guess if he feels that hard about it, but yeah, it's open.
Yeah.
I like Thomas. He's a good guy. He's funny. He's
Yeah.
entertaining.
He is entertaining.
He's got a good personality.
Yeah.
But I don't know what he's got going on.
Sure.
The past 6 months, I know he's been making fun of another guy I'm good friends with named Dion Johnson. I know they're having some kind of beef, and that's the beauty of this is I'm mature enough where if those two guys are beefing, I can still be friends with Dion, and I can still be friends with Thomas.
Sure, and why not? And it should be more. I will be honest with you, Chase. It should be more of that in this, especially, behind the curtains, because at the end of the day, we're out there in front of the curtains, our lives in each other's hands. Why can't we extend that to the dressing room as well? But I know personalities are personalities. Chase Emery, man, you're a blessing, and thank you again. I appreciate you for doing this, man. It really means a lot, and I hope. Was there anything else you wanted to get off your chest before we close this thing out for today?
No. I mean, I just I don't like. I feel like I'm too busy to be caught up in the drama.
Yeah.
And if you notice, I've noticed a lot of this. Being in the business for 6 years now, a lot of the drama it happens at the lower level.
Sure.
The lower level independent shows, they're the ones always slam packed with drama. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen at the upper level. It does.
Sure.
But a lot of these guys out there that are making all these towns and shows, getting booked everywhere, do you think they're caught up in drama?
Right.
They're not.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is, I try not to get, I know some of these younger wrestlers, they are say, well, I'm loyal to this promotion. I only do, I have to be at this promotion. I'm loyal to these guys and I can't work over here. I'm the opposite. I stay loyal to the people who are good to me.
Yeah.
But, I'm just going to say, like, I'm not tied down to any promotion. Well, it's independent contractor.
100%. 100%.
So.
Outstanding, man. And we're gonna wrap it with that. Let me ask you one last thing, and I'll get you out of here. Every wrestler has a legacy that they're chasing. 20 years from now, when someone mentions your name, what do you hope the first thing that they say about Chase Emery?
Well, hopefully they say, "Oh, he was a good guy, good person," and hopefully they say, "Oh man, he was great in the ring, drew a lot of money." Maybe who knows? In 20 years, maybe they say he changed the business. I don't know.
Wow.
Hopefully it's something like that.
Man, you got the right outlook, Chase. Again, respect to you, and you really are. I think you're an example that a lot of kids out there today should follow, and even some of us old timers, we should follow that same example. I would just say that out of deference and respect to you. One last time, tell everybody how to get a hold of Chase Emery if they want to book him or they want to make contact with him.
Yes, so social media, that's how I take on my bookings. So Chase Emery on Facebook, and then on Instagram, it's Chase_Emery at _wrestling. And then I'm on Twitter or X at Chase_Emery98. And then I do have a Gmail. So if you do want to book me, my Gmail is chase.emery98@gmail.com. So if you're not a guy that wants to reach out to me on social media, that is my email address that you can also email me to book me.
Good stuff. Man, continued success to you, Chase. I hope this thing works out in the absolute best way possible for you. And if there's anything we can ever do here, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to have you on again in the future. And and we'll talk again hopefully in the future, man.
Yeah, I'll hopefully see you on August 2nd.
Yeah, I'm going to make every effort to get out there, man. It's great talking to you, and if anything we can do again, just let us know. All right, that's going to wrap it up for the interview portion of the program. I appreciate my man Chase for coming on today. That was awesome. Really good kid, and if you're anywhere he's going to be appearing, go out there and make an effort to see Chase Emery. Just an all around good guy and a true babyface in every sense of the word. So blessings to Chase Emery, and thanks for him for doing that. All right, be right back. We're going to wrap this thing up with our most ridiculous item of the week, and we will call it a day right after this on Regalwood Rasslin. Stand by. right, back here on Regalwood Rasslin. Great, just a great conversation there with Chase Emery. I hope you got as much out of that as you needed. I think that he was very, very forthcoming. And the thing that struck me about it was the fact that he was as just matter of fact about it. He wasn't screaming, he wasn't yelling, he wasn't jumping up and down. It was just like, look, this is my story, and this is how the whole thing kind of panned out. So everybody's got their versions of events, and those are his. And as again with every guest I have on here, it's the opinions or whatever's expressed is their opinions and their opinions only. I don't necessarily endorse their opinions, but at the same time they have the ability, because this platform is there for anybody, for just those reasons. All right, we've been going an awful long time today. We're going to wrap this thing up. I'm going to do a super quick most ridiculous item of the week, and then we're going to call it a day. Hope everybody has a great 4th of July holiday. Get out there and celebrate that thing, but be safe, of course, as always. Old Regal's going to be out there on the lake tomorrow, reared back with a cool, refreshing beverage and a nice package of fireworks to ring that thing in correctly. All right, let's get over here to this most ridiculous. This comes to us from a new page I just found on Facebook called Botch Club, BOTCHCLUB, Botch Club. And it may become our go-to page for our most ridiculous, because as the title suggests, there's some good stuff on here. I don't know where this is, don't know who these people are, don't know where the event is, don't know any of the people involved. So with that, I will just present it as is. Here is your most ridiculous item of the week. Get myself out of the way here. Check it out. And it's so good, and it's only 3 seconds. Let's watch it again. Just the sheer power of the guy in the middle here. He didn't even take a step. He just kind of it's like, and the guy, has to go to the ropes. It's just the sheer power of these individuals and just their phenomenal athletic ability. All right, just gonna wrap it up. I'm not gonna belabor this thing much longer. I do appreciate everybody who popped in today. Appreciate, again, Chase Emery for coming in and telling his story. It was really good. I have an interview already in the can for next week. Next Thursday at 3 p.m. we'll be back with episode 15. And I have a guest that I've already talked to, and was quite frankly surprised that he came and did the show. But he was also remarkably candid in his interview. He talks about a lot of personal things that's going on with him in his life, where he's at in life at this point in the game. And I think it'll be one that you'll also be very interested in. I like to interview current people and old friends, and this guy kind of sits in the frame of one of the older friends of mine. We've had our ups and downs just like everybody else in this thing, but this one I think will be interesting to a lot of you who's been around a long time, because if you have been around a long time, odds are you worked for this guy in the past. And as a little teaser, I'll tell you, over in the Spartanburg area. So if that doesn't give it away, then you'll be surprised when I name him next week. But big interview coming up with him next week. I think you'll enjoy that. And that'll be airing next Thursday. All right. Again, thanks to everybody who joined me today. Remember, we are always on YouTube at Wrestle Radio 860. Wrestle Radio 860 on YouTube, Twitch, Regalwood 6969. Facebook, of course, Ricky Regal, RIKKI. REGAL. Rumble and Kick, of course, are Regalwood, respectively. Check us out any of those platforms, and then I will do this again with you all next Thursday. Remember, Thursday, 3 p.m. right here on all your